Here we go. The game plan week 9. Time flies so fast, Ben.
Over halfway there. Crazy.
It really is wild. Dave Lochran, we got my man Ben Rasa here. 10 games. So it's actually, when you look at this slate, it's small in terms of game size. And then it's small when you take out a few games that really just aren't that enticing. But there are a few games that jump out to you where you could legitimately make an argument for 8 or 9 different players in that one individual game.
For sure. Yeah, a couple big stackable games we'll get to. I like the slate. One of my, we're only, we're halfway, a little over halfway, but this is one of my favorite slates of the year so far. Some big games in the NFL in general. And I kind of I think it's a challenging build, but it wasn't overly where I'm jamming in guys I don't like. I found a way to get around it, I think.
All right, let's do it then. We got 10 games. I found some ways to get around it too. I don't know. I don't know if that's gonna, end up being the right move or not, but we'll talk about it. And it's also one of those weeks where I'm having a tough time not paying up for just Travis Kelce and then, and then finding value elsewhere, because it just seems like, usually I hate paying for a tight end. And I'll do it, when I find it necessary. I won't say necessary, but I do find it to be one of those weeks where there is an incredible amount of value in that low 4K range at wide receiver. A lot of them being tournament plays, but still, that paying up for Kelce seems to make plenty of sense.
Oh, I mean, if you can get there, more power to you. I got there in some instances. We'll talk. There's one tight end in particular that I'm pretty high on, which is obviously a savings from Kelce, as they all are. But it's hard to argue with him. I mean, the Browns' defense is good, but he's in a different class. He's in the Ertz, Gronk, tier, and they're not on the slate.
Yeah, and he's actually not that expensive, which is what I kind of like. 6,600 isn't anything crazy. But yeah, look, there are some values there too. We'll get into that. Let's just dive right into it. Chicago and Buffalo. We've got ourselves a barn burner here, Ben. Right now, you're looking at a over/under of 38 points. Yep, that's right, 38 points in today's football. A 10.5 point spread. Yep, Bills are 10.5 point home dogs. The Bills have. Do you know what their implied total is?
Well, if it's 38 and they're 10, that would give them like 13, 14.
Yep, 13.8.
Yeah, that's bad.
13.8. Man, they've thrown 3 passing touchdowns this year, total. That's how bad they are. This game, I really don't have. You're gonna laugh. I like both defenses from this game, but that's about it.
I get it. Well, yeah, I wish this game wasn't the first one we're talking to. We're going to lose all our viewers when I start spewing some Bills hot takes, but I like both defenses. I'm with you. It's hard to pay up. You talked about Travis Kelce. The Bears defense is the other in terms of pricing, where they're on an island. Peterman is as good a matchup as you can find. He does horrible things with the ball. I'm more inclined to go all the way down to the Bills defense, though. We saw, against the Patriots, they're a good unit. They fight hard. Trubisky's not certainly immune to making some mistakes, and the price allows you to spend up. I will say this. I think the Bills certainly cover and they compete in this game. I would not be stunned if they win this game.
Yeah, I honestly feel the same, but the problem is I feel that way because of their defense, right? Now, this is a just straight trash quarterback. I mean, 8th and 5 pick Peterman. By the way, I created that nickname. I don't want to hear anything otherwise. I really should. I saw it in Evan Silva's article, and I'm like, dude, I read your article each week, but that shit started here. That shit started here, man. Anyway, you look at him, he's so bad, but even with Derek Anderson or Josh Allen or Peterman at the helm, their defense has actually been good enough to keep them within one possession against the Patriots up until 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, when McDermott decides that he's going to punt the ball past the 50-yard line back to Tom Brady and the Patriots. I mean, he's the problem there outside of the quarterbacking play. And LaShawn McCoy can't move the football unless it's in the passing game. He can't run in between the tackles anymore. He's done.
Yeah, he just dances. They should have, not that it really mattered, but he was ineffective against the Patriots. Uh, like I said, I like the Bills in this game just in general. It doesn't translate to many DFS targets, though. I think their formula is pray that he doesn't make any mistakes and lean on the defense and grind out a game. I don't see any way that the Bills can put up, if this game goes over, even that midget total, I don't think the Bills can win the game. I just don't see how they can score more than about 20 points at the max.
Yeah, no, for sure. Mike Bucket says, Laffy, you look refreshed today, my man.
Daylight.
I got a Red Bull and daylight savings. What more can I ask for, huh? I don't feel refreshed, but as long as I look it.
Unfortunately, he didn't mention me. I guess I look as always. It's sad times over here in New York. What can I say?
Yeah, let me ask you this though. I'll be honest, it is really difficult for me. It's really tough for me to look at this Chicago defense and not want to play them just because of how dreadfully bad this Bills offense is. Like, I just feel like even if they do keep it competitive, like even if they do keep this game competitive, they're probably still throwing a pick six. They're probably, Peterman's probably still getting sacked 14 times. How we say we usually hate paying up for defenses. Like, this is another spot where I actually don't mind paying up for defense. It's such an unpredictable and volatile position, but this does feel like the one team this week, unless Fitzpatrick goes awry, that could give you like 2 defensive touchdowns and 30 defensive points.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that they have the slate breaking potential. Like, if there's one defense who could just end the slate, it could be the Bears. Yeah, it's just tricky. That 1,800, 1,500, depending on what you save and who you go with, is really useful. Like, I found some good use, and we'll get there obviously with these other games. That makes it tricky. I did make some room for the Bears, but I have more Bills defense.
Karl Mark says, I think you look fantastic, Ben.
Appreciate that, buddy.
Yeah. By the way, hit us with a like. It's always greatly appreciated for everybody in here. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe, notification bell so you know when all the shows are coming up on the Awesemo stream. Thanks as always for tuning in. We love you guys. All right, you want to move on from this game? We spent like more time than we should on it anyway, which was 30 seconds would have been enough. All right, Tampa and Carolina, Ben. You go from the lowest spread of the slate to the second highest. We're at 55. Cam Newton and his Panthers are 6-point favorites. I've seen this line moving from like 5.5 to 6.5. It's still sitting right around 6 though. I know Fitzpatrick and the boys are 6-point road dogs, but that doesn't really concern me much if you are considering a game stack, simply because you have James Bradbury and you have some decent defenders on this Panther squad, but they really haven't done a great job of stopping the pass this year. They really haven't scared me much. Obviously, just in terms of preference, whether it be cash, you're still looking at Carolina, but this isn't to say that this game doesn't have shootout potential either.
This is one of them, you said right at the beginning of the show where you could play 8-10 guys in this game, and I wouldn't hate it from both quarterbacks. Carolina's defense is in play because Fitzpatrick is out of control. I don't have any interest in the Bucs running game. That's the one spot I got away from. But other than that, sign me up. I think Cam is my cash QB. I've been on him the whole year. He's going to be really popular this week. That's the difference. Not that it means I'm just going away in tournaments, but it certainly loses the appeal when he's, I think, going to be the highest owned quarterback. McCaffrey, sure, good spot. Bucs defense is mangled, and then you have Olsen, Funchess, more playable. I don't really have strong preferences. It's just you can allocate and make some room for those type of guys.
Yeah, for sure. I go away from the Bucs running game every week.
Yes,
like I just have no interest. Honestly, you're talking about a run game that I don't care. I don't care if Ronald Jones is out. I'm not. This isn't Ronald Jones is out, Peyton Barber smash time. Like Peyton Barber, you still have a guy in Peyton Barber that doesn't catch passes, that is going to need to score in order to give you, anything of value. It just it doesn't do it for me, Ben. But in the passing game, I think I always have a tough time paying a premium for Mike Evans
Hmm.
because there are guys priced around him that make life a lot easier. That isn't to say that Mike Evans can't have a big game. Like, last week he had a really big game against Cincinnati, and a lot of that production came in the fourth quarter when Fitzpatrick took over. But I also don't think it's the craziest idea that if you're looking to, target this game and be a little different, to look at someone like Chris Godwin, who, did have some upside with helm. We saw, against Pittsburgh, he should have caught 3 touchdowns. He dropped a couple of them and still had 10 targets, 74 yards, and a touchdown. He scored in all three of the each of the first 3 games that Fitzpatrick started. So Godwin is one of those that I mentioned at the top of the show. He's one of those cheap wide receivers, and I have a few more, not named DJ Moore, who's also in this game and also has value in that low 4K range, at least on DraftKings, that make for really solid pivots away from the chalk. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the wide receivers have been tough. Evans last week, he was having a good game, and then Fitzpatrick found him 80 yards in the clear. I don't really understand what happened there late in that game.
Right.
That got him
Right.
over the top. He's been overpriced for what he's been doing. I don't mind it. There's going to be people running it back with him. I still am kind of more with you where I'd rather go to a Deshaun Jackson Godwin type. Uh, Even if you want to throw in OJ Howard, those are weapons that the Bucs are going to utilize. They're getting targets. And this is a game, if Carolina gets out ahead, they're playing catch up. If the Bucs get out ahead, it's going to be because of the pass anyway. I don't really worry about a game script issue because as we both talked about, the Bucs running game is not going to be able to sustain regardless of what's going on. They're going to have to pass either effectively or play catch up, which is almost better.
Right. You're actually looking for that. Or I mean, if you want to give me if you want to give me a boat race, well, actually, no, boat racing would not be good because when you say boat race, it sounds good, right? You're like, oh, it's a boat race. Okay. They're neck and neck, but they're not. If you want to give me a shootout, that's the word I was looking
Shootout would
for. I'm
work,
cool
yeah.
with I'm cool with that too. Um, but I also don't mind if Carolina goes up by 14 points early. The truth is, though, I'm done trying to predict Ryan Fitzpatrick game scripts, right? Like, against Philly and against the Saints, we're like, all right, they'll go down early. Fitzpatrick will have to throw. It's like, nah, Fitzpatrick will throw 400 yards in the first 3 quarters, and the other team will have to scrape out of the coffin to try and come back from this one. It's hard to predict this guy, man. And I think the only thing we know for a fact is that he's going to throw the football quite a bit.
Yeah, the range of outcomes is enormous both ways, and that's why Carolina's defense is a good play today, and Fitzpatrick is a good play today.
Agreed.
Because he
Yep.
could throw multiple pick sixes, and he also could throw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yep.
That's just what he is. He's really volatile, and you just kind of mix and match that.
Week 3, the Steelers defense had 17 DraftKings points against Fitzpatrick, who threw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So, yeah, I'm with you.
Crazy.
What about OJ Howard?
Yeah, I mean, there's another tight end in a game that we'll get to who's a little cheaper. I wish he was in the threes. If he was the mid threes, I'd have certainly more exposure, but he's going to be used. He's going to be a target. And I have a little, not a huge staple of my lineups, though.
All right. And then on the other side, let's talk about it. You and Josh were discussing this before we started the show when it came to Cam Newton. This is a guy that you've been pretty high on all season. Like last week, played him at 1%.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't been afraid to target Cam in matchups that seem pretty unappealing. This one isn't unappealing. Cam Newton's going to be pretty popular. Are you bucking that trend today, or are you going to go with the chalk and ride with Cam Newton again?
So in cash, I am riding with him. I have some in tourneys. It's just not as appealing as it was in these past couple of games because, like I said, I almost prefer him in tougher matchups. He runs more. He's a red zone threat with his legs. Here, I'm sure he's going to have an effective game, but how much are they going to really rely on him, especially if they're up comfortably? So I definitely think he's in play, but there's a lot of quarterbacks that will have significantly less ownership, and that kind of levels the playing field for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. What about though on the other side or on the same side, Christian McCaffrey, his price tag, he's not cheap. Christian McCaffrey started the season at 6,400. He has been more expensive than this. This is probably where he belongs. Last week, I'd say he actually got pretty lucky. A touchdown pass that was intended for Devin Funchess was deflected, and McCaffrey dove out of nowhere to come down with it in the end zone. I'm sure you saw that.
I did.
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, he had a long run of 12 and a long reception of 8. He really didn't pick up anything noteworthy. It was a tough matchup, though. Now you face a Tampa team that had actually stopped the run pretty well through the first several weeks of the year, but they're just depleted by injuries to the front seven. And now McCaffrey heads into this one as a 6-point home favorite. It's hard for me not to have a decent amount of love for him today.
No, absolutely. He's one of those, that 7K running back range. It's one I'm attacking. He should be involved. You can pair him with Cam because he gets so much work with the passing game. You can play him standalone. I do think the price is a little much. I know it doesn't seem like much, but if he was more like flat 7, I feel a lot more comfortable. But he's going to get everything you could ask for in terms of opportunities, a great matchup at home. I think he's still a pretty good play.
Yeah, I think he's a real good play too, and I'm going to have some of him. Make sure though when we move throughout these games, if he's not your top guy.
Ruh-roh.
He had a great game.
Mixon was awesome.
Did we lose Ben?
No, I think I'm here.
Did I lose Ben, Josh?
We keep losing you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Is it me or Ben?
I think it's you.
Well, that's kind of weird. Huh.
I've had Ben crystal clear the entire time.
Hold on
you were
a
the
second.
one that froze.
Hold on, literally one second. I think I found the solution here.
Okay.
We were just talking about the Joe Mixon victory lap. That's when you cut out. It was terrible. That was my moment to shine. He was awesome last week as Luffy has gone into the abyss here.
Apparently we need to ship Laffy a new modem as well.
Wow. Modems are coming on. There you are.
This is the first. How we doing? Good?
I think we're good. I was just talking.
Yeah, you're good.
All right. For some reason, my internet automatically connected to the dog shit connection and not the good one. So we're back in business now. We shouldn't have any issues going forward. No, this is not some shit my modem nonsense. We're in business, baby. No, Ben, all I said was last week was, you had Joe Mixon that you mentioned is one of your favorite plays of the year. And he exploded, and it was against this same Tampa Bay defense. So yeah. I think McCaffrey has similar upside, if not same upside in this spot. So I'll ask you, what are your thoughts on the passing game here? Devin Funchess is pretty affordable. DJ Moore is getting a lot of attention. I've heard his name quite a bit, coming off of that. I'd say his best game of the season, where he was actually pretty heavily involved in the offense. Saw his snap count rise. For the first time, he played, 71% of snaps, only 2 fewer snaps than Devin Funchess. What do you make of the pass catchers here? You can feel free to include Greg Olsen as well.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't have a real big take. If you're using Cam, you can certainly pair him with any of these guys. I think they're all relatively safe. They're going to get the work. They're going to have the opportunity. None of them really stood out, though, in the sense where it's like, okay, if I don't play Greg Olsen, I'm toast. Like, I have some Greg Olsen. I like the spot. I don't think any of these guys are going nuclear. It seems like a kind of situation where they all play pretty well. One of them may certainly have a nice game, but I think the ceilings are relatively capped just because there's so many opportunities for different Panthers to get involved in a game like this.
I agree. I'm almost more tempted to play like a Traquan Smith at the same price.
Yep.
And hope that his ownership is lower. There's a few of those guys that are in the same realm. You want to move on to the next one?
Sure. This should be a quick one. This is a bad game.
Well, this is Cleveland and Kansas City.
Oh, I thought you were going. See, I just skipped
over.
You
thought I was going Miami, New York?
I didn't want to talk about Mahomes. I tried to incept you there. But
Okay.
I guess we'll have to do it. Fair enough.
Yeah. I talked about Buffalo having 3 passing touchdowns as a team on the year. Yeah. Mahomes has 4 or more, or 4 in 3 straight games, and 3 or more in 6 of 8. So he's pretty good. Cleveland gets rid of Hugh Jackson finally. I mean, it took him long enough. You get rid of Todd Haley. You start things over now. Was it Freddie Kitchens? I think is the guy now. And then there. So here's my thing on it, Ben, and then we'll get your take. This is Kitchens is the offensive coordinator for the Browns, but that matters more to me actually than anything else right now. So okay, this is a bad Browns team. There's no question about it in terms of record, but they also have offensive talent, right? Like Baker Mayfield can have a solid game. Jarvis Landry's still one of the best possession receivers in the game. Nick Chubb has touch counts of 18 and 20 since Carlos Hyde was shipped out of Cleveland. David Njoku is one of the most athletic tight ends in the league. Like they do have guys. And I don't know, did we get a Callaway?
I believe
he's in. And Antonio Callaway's talented enough to make a big play. He's another one of those guys that I think is cheap enough to pivot off a guy like DJ Moore with. We'll start with Cleveland first. I don't think they win this game. I'm not assuming that at all. But I do think they put some points on the board against the Kansas City team that away from Arrowhead has struggled defensively, has struggled in run defense, and has really struggled in allowing big plays to opposing wide receivers. So I'm not saying Cleveland wins, but I think there's a good chance that they actually get some offensive momentum in this game, regardless of the final score.
Yeah, the Browns, I mean, they have talent on both sides of the ball. That was one of the many reasons why Hugh Jackson, I thought this was his worst.
Long overdue.
Like this really felt worse than the other years. Like there's
totally agree.
No excuse. You mentioned the guys on offense. I don't mind Baker in this spot. Sub 6K, Chiefs defense away from Arrowhead. You know, they're not the worst unit on the slate, but they're certainly one that I wouldn't be too scared of. And Baker's been shaky, but he still puts up some points. So him, Landry, Njoku certainly crashed back to earth. He's not going to be nearly as popular, though. So those guys, I'm into. The one guy who, and I get it, you just mentioned the volume. Chubb is a guy that I don't exactly know how I feel. I'm a little nervous. If say Mahomes goes out, gets up early, and they really start going to, do you think Chubb can get involved in that, or will Duke Johnson take over?
Well, that's the thing. If it was Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley, Todd Haley refused to use Duke Johnson, even playing from behind, give him like 5 touches per game. So now you have Greg Williams, who was the defensive coordinator, taking over as the interim coach. But Kitchens is the one that we actually care about, considering he's calling the offense, right? And I think that he probably does get Duke involved, but here's the thing for me. On the same note, like Nick Chubb, when do you get a guy that's priced at 4,500 who has literally seen 18 carries in back-to-back games? Mind you, that Pittsburgh game, they played like shit. Were playing from behind throughout, still lost by 15 points, and he had 18 carries. So again, different offensive coordinator, different head coach. I understand that, but I also think that he's just so dirt cheap that I'd be crazy not to have some.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of
cash. You have to play him, by the way.
That's where I was going to go. He seems like more of a cash play to me. The upside's more worrisome than the floor, just because I think to really hurt you, he's going to have to find the end zone. He probably has to contribute in the passing game a little. But yeah, I mean, that's the guy. I'm not sure exactly where. I'm going to let the field decide for me. I'll have 10, 15%. And if that's not enough, so be it. That's really all I got from that. On the other side, Kareem Hunt's one of my favorite plays. He's another in that 7K running back range. Just, we saw what James Conner did to Cleveland's defense. This is the way to attack them. He's just, Kareem Hunt is great. He catches the ball. He's explosive. Use him in the red zone. Use him in a game script like this. seems like a pretty good spot all around.
It does. Let me ask you about OJ Howard real fast, though. I'm sorry, David Njoku. Before we go on, I know you mentioned that he disappeared last week. He did disappear, but at the same time, like it wasn't that he stopped playing, and that was the weird part about it, right? Like Njoku still saw 84% of the snaps, which is in line with what he's been doing all season long. So it's really tough for. I think this could be a bounce back spot for Njoku. The Chiefs have not done a particularly solid job of shutting down opposing tight ends. So I have no problem going back to Njoku here. You want to talk about ownership being down, as you mentioned. You have to think that it's going to be down for him as well.
No doubt. And obviously last week was an outlier. It's just to what extent does he bounce back? It's not like he's going to get no targets again. That's just not going to happen. There are, like I said, several tight ends. I have some. Him and Baker is an interesting combo to me. They're not going to be as popular as I think they would have been just in a slightly different scenario. And those are the kind of things I look to exploit. It's not, Njoku is in tech for me the same mindset and spot that he was when he was playing well. That one game doesn't really change that much for me.
Agreed. Kansas City's done a good job against slot receivers. So I worry a bit about Landry, but he just gets so much work.
He's really good too.
Yeah. Where was Anthony? No, it was Alexander says no Chubb with game script. I mean, I get it. But Chubb's also cheap enough to me. That's just kind of what Chubb is so cheap on DraftKings that I really don't have an issue getting him in terms of cash. Like I still think, look, they used a pretty early draft pick on him. I still think that this guy's going to be involved no matter who's at the helm, no matter who's calling the plays. On the Kansas City side, you ready for this? Yeah, I'm not a big home road splits guy until it really hits you in the face. Listen to Tyreek Hill's home road splits for his career. At home, 20 games, 5 touchdowns, 45.8 yards per game with a 64.9% catch rate. Okay. On the road, 15 touchdowns in 19 games. So one fewer game, 10 more touchdowns, and 82.4 yards per game, 3 additional targets per game, and a catch rate of 76.1%. That's insane.
Yeah, it is. It is insane. When people talk home road splits, almost never is it the wrong way. Like that's not a thing.
Right.
Like, oh, they love the dome, T.Y. Hilton style or Matt Ryan style. Like nobody should benefit from being in weird different stadiums.
Right.
I don't
he does.
Tyreek Hill, it's scary every time he's on the slate because if you don't play him, he can end the slate immediately, just the way he plays. We talk about that all the time. I really don't think that this is the best spot for him, but at the same time, that it's almost not pertinent with the way he plays because is he going to catch a 65-yard touchdown? Yes or no? It's kind of linear.
Right. Yeah. And then like with Denzel Ward, he's been very good. Brown burned him last week, but he's still been very good. And the problem is Tyreek Hill's not really one of those guys that, you look at a stud shutdown corner and you're like, okay, because they have a shutdown corner, he's going to be able to stop Tyreek. He just does things in so many different ways. And what it comes down to me is that I expect low ownership on Hill for a couple of reasons. He's really expensive, Ben. He's priced, right up there with Mike Evans in a 55 total game that everyone's loving because Fitzpatrick's so cheap. He's priced around Michael Thomas. He's priced higher than him. He's priced around DeAndre Hopkins, who has basically no other pass catching weapons around him. He's priced around all of these guys. I think Tyreek Hill is the odd man out in a lot of spots, and I'm going to try and get some of him into my lineup just because he's so explosive.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I'm going to have some exposure. Again, all things considered, he's not in the optimal spot, and that's why the ownership is going to be what it is, and that gives him appeal in itself.
Right. All right. You want to move on? Anyone else that we haven't talked about? Oh, Kareem Hunt or Christian McCaffrey?
Kareem Hunt for me.
All right. And then I like McCaffrey a little more, but I think both of them are phenomenal plays.
Great.
And then I mentioned them earlier, but I really like Travis Kelce here. Like I'm not opposed to paying for Kelce here. There are ways to do it, especially when you get to the last game with the Saints. On the other side with the Rams, none of the receivers are really that expensive. They're all pretty affordable. So I think that will open things up as well. We spent a lot of time on that game, Ben, because we don't have to spend a lot of time on this next one. Miami and the New York Jets, another barn burner. We have when you're looking at the totals on this game, it has the second lowest total on the week. There's nothing else below 46 until you get to the Jets Miami game and the Bills Chicago game. You have a 42 points over under. The spread is 3. I think Jets are given 3 points, and the implied totals are low on both sides. I actually kind of like Kenyon Drake here because of how bad the Jets have been against pass catching backs, and the game script should really fit him. But outside of that, I don't know if I have any interest. Maybe Miami D. What do you have? Anything from this game?
Not really. I have Drake. You mentioned it. I just played him. It was one of those guys. I got him at the wrong time this year. He had a lull for 2 games. I was on him, and he's been great since then.
We both were. We both were on it, yeah.
Very frustrating, but this is a good spot for him. You mentioned Jets defense. That's how they should attack. We try not to talk about weather because we don't know. This is another one. So Miami and Duke last night played on this field in the pouring rain, and they tore the field up. I've seen some chatter about that. I have no idea what that means. If anything, it may make it sloppy for both sides. I don't really worry about it. It's not taking me off the limited plays that I liked anyway, which is basically just Drake.
Right. And it's not like if it's going to hurt running backs, I'm glad you brought this up. I didn't know about this. If you're going to hurt running backs, it's also going to hurt a wide receiver when he tries to dig into a route, and cut on a route. So yeah, I don't really think that anyone benefits from this. So yeah. By the way, when we're talking about inactives, Stefon Diggs is officially inactive. Ty Montgomery, as if anyone cared, is inactive. Anything else? Anything else we have? Anything? I know Kenny Stills is not expected to play.
I think he's out at this point, but
has he been officially ruled out? Okay.
I thought I said that, but he's trending. Certainly not going to play, I would say.
Yeah, I don't think it's official yet, but we don't think he's going to play. Do you have any interest in Devontae Parker or like a Danny Amendola? Anything here?
Not really. There's just too many other guys. If they were in a price point by themselves, I think it would be a little more appealing. I didn't feel the need to get them, and I feel pretty comfortable not chasing anything on the Jets side. Their wide receiver, it's just a mess and a mystery. With Enunwa, Robbie Anderson, they may play. They're banged up. I don't like Curse. Herndon, the tight end, if you're in a real jam, he's catching some touchdowns, but even there, it's not something I think is overly important to target.
And he's not that cheap.
He's
cheap, but he's not like if I'm playing Herndon, I want him at minimum salary for a tight end.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like we were playing Njoku at this price 2 or 3 weeks ago. I can't justify that. Karl Marx says Devontae Parker week. I don't mind Parker. I mean, look, the guy played 100% of the offensive snaps last week. It is possible that he gives you a decent game. I don't mind Devontae Parker. That said, he's a massive risk. It's still Brock Osweiler, right? Like it is still Brock Osweiler. And I think the positive here is that, the Jets have created no pass rush this year. So Brock might have a clean pocket, and, they're down a bunch of guys. You're down Kenny Stills as well. You lost Albert Wilson for the year, and now you're just talking about Amendola and Parker. Jakeem Grant as a gadget type guy, but granted, did see 8 receptions playing from 8 targets playing from behind last week. But I think Parker, I don't have a problem with Parker. I could see another decent game from him here. I prefer him over Amendola. I can tell you that much, because if you're playing a wide receiver from this game, you're just throwing darts. And if I'm going to throw darts, Ben, give me someone that doesn't have 6 for 60 upside with a touchdown every one touchdown every season.
Yeah, I'd rather roll the dice. I mean, Parker's more likely to give you 0, of course, but that's not pertinent. This is tournament only. Clearly, don't go for these guys in cash. And
Right.
I will say, Devontae Parker is the guy that if you get it right, he has some monster upside.
No doubt about it. Yeah, we'll keep you updated on some of this news, by the way. Let's see. Kenny Stills, by the way, is active.
Ooh.
So initially they were going to hold him out, but after watching him, per Adam Schefter on Twitter, after watching wide receiver Kenny Stills in warmups, Dolphins decided to make him active for today's game against the Jets. Initial game plan was to hold him out. Plan changed. That still seems like he could be active and not play. It definitely downgrades Parker if you were interested, because now we really have no idea, Ben. But that just muddies the water even further, which once again means Drake is the only guy that I really actually like from this game.
Yeah, it doesn't change that much. To me, I think it's borderline too aggressive to take a shot in the dark with Stills, even though he'll be 0% owned.
Right.
And Parker, it makes it that much more tough to avoid the super landmine.
And if anyone's wondering, Ben and I played Drake on the weeks where he had 5 carries and 3 carries.
Yeah, I believe 3 and 2 points was where I honed in on him there.
and then that was sandwiched in between a 17-point game and a 24.5-point game, of course.
Unbelievable. It's true.
Yeah.
I've literally played him 2 weeks. Like, I honed in and then I jumped off. Whoops.
Yeah, jumped off for the big one. Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Another game this was one where I would be surprised if this game goes over. It has I think last I looked, a 47 total. Did it come down? 46 now. It was 47 last night.
Yeah, 46.
Yeah, Ravens are 1-point home favorites, so you basically got to pick them on your hands here, Ben. And these teams, I know that Baltimore came into Pittsburgh and dumped all over them several weeks back in a primetime spot. But I just feel like generally Pittsburgh-Baltimore games are low-scoring, hard-hitting, defensive games. And I feel like with this being in Baltimore, I wouldn't be surprised even in 2018 to see like a 20-17 or a 17-14 game here against these two AFC North squads.
I hope you're right. If there was one game I could just eliminate from the slate, this would be the game. I don't have much, and I'm kind of worried about not like these Steelers weapons. It's hard to. I don't have James Conner as high as McCaffrey, Kareem Hunt. We'll talk about Kamara. It's hard to get to Antonio Brown. Juju's kind of just like lost in the shuffle, and it makes me nervous. I really don't want to go and get them. It's hard to fit them in. And you just never know with this game. I'm hoping it's more of a grinded out style. I really don't have much on either side of this game. I'm hoping I can get away with that. So I would love the under to hit here.
Yeah, I'm probably going to need it to hit, because it's rare, Ben, that you have the Steelers just in a spot where you're really not that interested at all. It's really tough, right? Because if most people are thinking like us, then that means Antonio Brown is going to be super low owned, which right now on awesemo.com, if you haven't signed up yet, awesemo.com, AWESEMO.com, you can get all of the ownership projections and a whole lot more for each and every sport. But just some inside look here, you have 4.1 projected ownership on Brown. I mean, if that's the case on AB, it's really hard not to have some interest in him. And it's really just the same idea I have with Tyreek Hill. Like they can both blow up a slate. And Antonio Brown has now scored 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 touchdowns over his last 5 games, Ben.
Yeah, he's slow key getting it. I mean, he still hasn't had some of the AB games where it's just like, okay,
yeah,
it's over.
Yeah.
And that's what scares me. It's not like he's just been ineffective. I may try to add some and get leverage on, if he's hovering around 5%, that's a buy spot no matter what. It's just a tricky thing. I think a lot of people are going to overlook it for good reason. There's other places to go with your money this week, and that's where you get these ownership plunges, and you got to look at that. Yeah.
Another thing too is you're looking at Joe Flacco, who could really be in a difficult situation here. You're missing Ronnie Stanley and James Hurst, both of the offensive tackles. I think Karl Marx just mentioned that in Slack too. You have basically a practice squad player replacing them, and a rookie third round pick replacing Hurst. Pittsburgh's already heated up from the Joe Flacco or from the Flacco rhetoric where he said, that game was easy and this and that, and that's he said a bunch of stuff that pissed him off, whatever that's worth. But this is just usually a matchup that is really hard hitting and defensive. So I don't know. Could James Conner, who's been a monster all year long, go off? Absolutely. Could Brown go off? No doubt. I wouldn't be surprised to see Pitt win this game. It's very close. It wouldn't surprise anyone. I do think John Brown is viable. I think this is actually a decent spot for John Brown. I know that he's another guy that will probably be overlooked entirely. I don't know. I think it could be a decent spot for Brown.
Yeah.
But
I mean, he caught one. They played already this year, and he was great. He caught a bomb. In that game, he's got some upside. Again, this is a game, you can't have everyone on every team. And I chose to say, you know what, as you pointed out, this historically has been a hard-hitting, grinded-out type of game. If I can get away with that here, some of these other games that we're about to get to, I really, there's some good plays in there for me.
Yeah, and he cooked Joe Hayden a couple times in that game, but I agree with you. I kept coming into that range with one of my last roster spots, and I'm like, yeah, John Brown's a fine play, but do I want to prioritize him? And generally speaking, the answer was no. Let's move on. Let's talk about the Vikings and the Lions. Lions shipped Golden Tate to Philly in the trade deadline. Eagles on a bye this week. And Stefan Diggs is out for Minnesota, so this game gets kind of interesting. In terms of Dalvin Cook, he's expected to see, like 15 to 20 snaps. The problem here, Ben, is 15 to 20 snaps for a running back. That doesn't really give you much insight. What if 15 to 20 snaps means, 13 carries? Like, I don't see why they would with their bye coming up next week. But it's really hard to gain any insight from that because snap count for a running back means a whole lot less for than a wide receiver if you're getting the ball every time you're on the field.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just he does enough to take my Latavius Murray interest down, and I have no interest in him in itself. So where I attack the Vikings, it will be with Cousins in the passing game. Thielen is great. He's great every week. I guess Slay will follow him into the slot, but what do I know? I mean, he primarily doesn't do that, and
I don't think he will.
Interesting. Okay.
Slay, I don't. He's. Let's see. Maybe I don't know. 18%.
Redwell, like.
Right, I know. It's like, do you want to waste it? Do you want to waste Darius play coverage on? I don't know. 18%. He's been in the slot 18% this time, or this year. 18% of the time this year. If that's a tough say, I don't know. I've seen a lot of people saying that they don't think he will.
See,
I don't even know if it would matter.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think it. Thielen's as safe as it comes. The guy I want to talk about is Kyle Rudolph. He's my favorite tight end on the slate. He gets a huge boost with Diggs being out. Red zone target. Good matchup. Price sub 4K. I really like it across the board there. And then the only other thing I have, and it's more of a question, is we were just talking about Darius Slay. What do you think happens with Xavier Rhodes on the other side? Is it Marvin Jones or is it Galladay?
Is Rhodes active?
I believe he is. I haven't seen anything confirmed, but I thought he was going to play.
That's what I saw too. I wasn't sure though. I was seeing that he was questionable. I guess we'll assume that he's active.
That's the tricky, because both of them are good plays. I have a little of both. It's just, man, if he goes on Marvin Jones, I certainly would want to allocate a little extra to Galladay.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't know. I'm. This is a tough. Xavier Rhodes is active. Okay, he is. He's active. That was an important one. So that's tough. And what I think we see, I highly doubt we see any shadow coverage. I just think, you look at Jones and you look at Galladay this year. Like, Galladay is running 70% of his snaps on the left side, 26% on the right, pretty much nothing in the slot. Marvin Jones, 31% on the left, 65% on the right. So, he's lined up way more on the right. Galladay's lined up way more on the left. But then Xavier Rhodes. Actually, yeah, it appears, yeah, Jones. So Xavier Rhodes, 65% on the right. So he should see Xavier Rhodes treatment a lot more than Galladay.
Yeah. And I mean, that's how I built. I have more Galladay than Marvin Jones. I have Galladay in cash. I do not have Jones in cash.
Yeah. The funny thing is that Jones burned Xavier Rhodes last year for like a monster game on Thanksgiving. Yeah.
It's the first game. It was just like, well, my slate's over.
Yeah.
It's already over.
I was driving to like Justine's aunt's house. I'm like, well, that was fun while it lasted. We didn't even eat yet.
Yeah. It was just
like, I hear you.
Keenum just running amok. It was not fun, but yeah, that's really all. I'm not messing around with these running games. Again, there's, even we got a couple games to go and there's just so many other good plays. I did mix and match these receivers though.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't want Curry on here. I think this could get against him here. And if Riddick was out, it'd be different, but Riddick's back. And if Riddick, still gets some passing down work, then I think that hurts Curry on, even though I'm a fan of his going forward. But I love the Kyle Rudolph call. There were only 5 tight ends in my player pool this week, like when I was going over options, and Rudolph was my favorite non-Travis Kelce play.
Yeah,
so
I like him a lot.
Yeah. Washington and Atlanta, no Chris Thompson. That's an interesting one right there. And then you have this, look, straight up, this game script really should favor Adrian Peterson heavily, right? Whether you want to pay for him or not is an entirely different story. But you have the Washington Redskins as 1.5 point favorites. Their defense has been spectacular. They just added Clinton Dix. It should favor AP. It's just whether or not, or AD, I should say. It's just whether or not you want to pay for him there. It's tough because I'm either wanting to go down to Chubb and then up to McCaffrey or Hunt or one of those guys. I'm having a tough time falling into that Peterson range.
I didn't get there. I agree. It's a good matchup at home and a good game script. Just a little too much / my lineups. It didn't fall where he really fit what I was trying to do. So I don't blame anyone if that's where they landed. He should be effective. He's getting a ton of work. This is a game I really didn't have much. Sad, shameful thing I'm about to say. I played Jordan Reed again.
I have some Reed too. I was just going to ask you.
It's so bad. I mean, at home, the Falcons defense, we've talked all year about, Deion Jones and the safeties have been out. They're not coming back. It should be wide open for him. But man, has it been disappointing. I would never wish injury on someone, but it would have helped me if he just did what he always does and gotten hurt, so I didn't have to deal with this.
Well, it's Alex Smith, man. Alex Smith can't find him more than 5 yards downfield.
It's so frustrating. And the sad thing is they're winning, so they have really no incentive to change any of this. And on the other side, Julio, he's not going to be nearly as popular as he's been. By random chance, he could fall in the end zone at one of these times. Who knows? Again, I didn't make it a priority to get him, but I certainly wouldn't mind taking the stab on a guy that we all know has massive upside every time he's on the slate.
I really like Julio for the same reasons as Tyreek Hill. It's
the same concept.
Yeah, just expecting him to be significantly lower owned than most. I still think because he's sub 8K, on DraftKings at least, that people latch on to that. They see under 8K, just like a psychological thing. And what he's been able to do without a touchdown this year is mind-numbing. But at the same time, I like Julio here as well. That's pretty much it, though, from Atlanta, because how do you place any faith in Coleman or Ito Smith against a really good Washington run defense? They're going to need to do it in the passing game. But the problem is both of these guys are getting to work inside the 10 at the goal line. There's really none of them that you can trust right now.
No, I have no interest. I'm more interested in Washington's defense, to be honest. At home, I think they could cause some problems for a dome team and a team that, I don't really trust outdoor. It's just a tough spot, I think, as a whole. Julio's the one exception, and that's mostly due to the ownership vacuum.
I'm with you, man. Let's talk. Let's go to Mile High, Denver and Houston. Demaryius Thomas traded from the Denver Broncos on Tuesday at the deadline, and then the first game 5 days later is against the Denver Broncos in Denver, who are facing or hosting his Houston Texans. Here we go, Ben. Demaryius Thomas is not going to fill the void left by ACL victim Will Fuller. It's just not going to happen. Qt is out. It's not going and plus, how do you even integrate him after 5 days?
Yes.
Like with the play, they have a bye coming up next week. I don't even think he's going to have much of an impact. We'll start on the Houston side. I think it's a really tough matchup for Watson. I actually have some interest, although I always am willing to play Hopkins. I actually have some interest in Denver's defense here.
Denver's defense is right now possibly going to be my number one defense on the whole slate. They're right up there. Have a lot. Think Denver wins this game at home. We talk all the time. It's not saying that Deshaun Watson can't have a good fantasy game because he's in the Fitzpatrick bucket. He makes mistakes and then he gets them back. But I'm going to bank on those mistakes. This is a tough place to play. I really have no Texans. Hopkins is always in play, of course, but this doesn't strike me as the best spot, and you can't play them all up there.
Yep. Agreed. You can't. And I don't know if I like even Lamar Miller. Denver's run defense has been trashed recently.
True.
But I just worry that this game could get a little bit away from him, and it's hard to trust a guy like Miller when you have a lot of quality low-end running backs. You have a guy like Phillip Lindsay on the other side. Does he do anything for you here against Houston?
I do have some. Freeman, I believe, is confirmed out. He was, he's not playing, and so it's just him and Booker back there. Guy runs well. He's at home. It's not the best matchup, but they do get him in space. He can catch some balls. I have him. Obviously, the guy we're gonna have to talk about is your boy Courtland Sutton, who is going to be massively popular.
He is.
I get it. It's just tricky. He's not exactly someone that it's the floor. I still think is very low. It's just he's going to have more opportunities to make catches, make plays, red zone looks, and that adds to it. I certainly have plenty, but I don't think it's without some risk.
No, it's definitely not without risk at all. It's a scary chalk play, and one that in tournaments I have no problem fading whatsoever. But again, like Courtland Sutton does have 2 touchdown upside. He does. Like
got it with Demaryius Thomas. There.
Right. You can hate the guy as much as you want, but like this guy has always been a touchdown catcher. Like that's what he does. So obviously he hasn't been great, but he's $3,900. You can do so much worse than Sutton. It's just whether or not you want the chalk, and he is going to be chalky. There's no question about it. That's why I've been talking about some of those low 4K pivots away from him and like DJ Moore, because I think there are plenty of them. But Sutton's in play. If I'm going to play a wide receiver here, I'm just going to go Sutton over Sanders, even though Sanders has been solid this year. It's just I don't want to pay up for a Denver receiver when there are so many other quality pass catchers on this slate. What about you?
I have some Sanders, not a ton, like you said. I much prefer Sutton just because of the it's $2,500 difference, and that's certainly significant. We don't know what this passing game it could be as a whole. That's my biggest worry for both of them is that Keenum certainly could just be ineffective, and it's just not a ton to go around. But like you said, the guy's got big upside, and I am using him. So buyer beware. But you got to embrace it. And I do think sub 4K, there's a real chance, even if it's somewhat dicey, he can make a couple big catches downfield, and that can raise that floor, even if it's not perfect.
Agreed. All right, we got 2 games to go here. Let's just hurry it up and go quickly on this one. Seattle and the Chargers, because I want to get to the next one. Carson, a game time decision. If he doesn't play, I think you could look at Mike Davis, who is almost minimum salary everywhere. So that's kind of interesting. Do you have any interest in this one where we don't know what's going on with Chris Carson, and we know that Melvin Gordon will play?
I have some interest in Keenan Allen. I think he's just complete. The Chargers have been off the slate. They were on a bye. No one is thinking of them, and they're starting to really find their rhythm. Melvin Gordon's banged up. That scares me a bit. I didn't ultimately get there too much, but I have some Keenan Allen in a spot. It's not the best matchup in the world, but I expect them to play well even in Seattle. Definitely going to be overweight on the Chargers as a whole, and that's mostly because I think most people won't go there, and that created some leverage for me.
All right. Yeah, I mean, Tyrell and Mike Williams, they're just too hard to trust. Yeah. You can't rely on them. They're touchdown or bust guys. Tyrell's just like that one big play or bust guy. He's done it a couple times, but that's it. You're not playing Eckler with Melvin back. On the other side, I find it interesting. I don't want to play Baldwin. If Baldwin was dirt cheap, I might take a stab on him or Lockett. But Lockett's been touchdown or bust too. Fortunately, he's scoring a lot of touchdowns. It's just with such low passing volume, there's really no ceiling here for these guys. For that reason, I'm going to pay close attention to the run game. If Carson is out, Mike Davis is cheap enough to where Rashad Penny's been so bad that Mike Davis could legitimately get 20 plus touches at $3,400, and I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah, that's something we got to certainly keep an eye on. And well said.
If you put Sutton in your flex, you can always swap to Davis too, because he will be way less popular if the news doesn't break till like 3 o'clock.
Good point. Yeah, if you're behind, especially in cash, and you're blocked, you can look and see if you both have just Sutton left. Obviously, you need to make the move there.
For sure. All right, we got 2 minutes left. Let's bang this out. It's the best game, but 57.5 total, 1.5 point spread right now. Breeze at home, 1.5 point dog against the Rams. Tell me what you've got here, because I have a lot.
I've got Alvin Kamara. Let's start there. 7,300. Don't really understand the price. I know Ingram is back clearly at this point, but Kamara is going to get the touches. He's going to have the chances. That's not what I'm worried about on this slate. I plugged him in, not across the board, but I have a lot of him and feel pretty good. I just think the price is way too low for a guy with that kind of upside. Other than that, you talked about Breeze. You could throw in Michael Thomas, Benjamin Watson. This is the other game where there's plays up and down both sides. It's massive. Rams, same story every week. Kupp is back. Woods, Cooks. Todd Gurley does it every.
I love this spot for Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, he's coming back. He's a little less priced than the other two. Seems good to go. So I definitely have some. And I didn't find the way to make room for Gurley in cash. So I got there.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't go to Gurley in cash, but I'm okay with it. I mean, he'll still have a fine game. The Saints really funnel things through the pass, though, like big time. They're one of the best. They're allowing the fewest yards per carry on the ground, and they're one of the worst through the air. So I really like Goff with whether it be Kupp or Woods or Cooks. I think you can really look at the pass catchers. Gurley's going to get his, no doubt. I'm not saying that. But I do think that they'll have to resort to the air more than normal. And I think on the other side, if you're looking to be different, if you're looking for a cheap wide receiver that could do some damage, Traquan Smith is the same price as DJ Moore. He's $300 more than Courtland Sutton. I'm sure this isn't a guy that most people are high on, and I totally understand that. But if you're looking to get an edge in some of these massive, large field tournaments, Traquan Smith is playing 75% of the offensive snaps over the last 2 weeks. He only needs a couple, Ben. So I'm definitely throwing his name out there.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, he is that kind of guy, really explosive. And when you combine explosiveness with low ownership, that is a formula. That's the Tyreek Hill formula. You can use that with other guys.
Yep, especially when they're so much cheaper. Mm-hmm. All right, stick around. Live Before Locks coming up next. Thanks as always for tuning into the Game Plan. We'll be back with you next Sunday, same time. Hit us with a like before you head out. It'll bring you good luck on this Week 9 slate. We wish you the best of luck. And for Ben and myself, we'll see you back here next Sunday.